You shortly again. And again, let me show you a picture again. Once again, Dayton, Ohio. This is the scene outside the hospital in Dayton, Ohio. This is, well, that's Ned Peppers. That's the bar there in the Oregon district. There's Miami Valley Hospital. We can tell you now, as those protesters gather there outside the hospital, that is where President Trump and the First Lady, that is going to be their first stop in Dayton, Ohio. This is, of course, the hospital where a number of the victims and survivors. The motorcade pulling up actually at the hospital right now. Presumably, the president will be greeted by those protesters and by that giant Trump balloon that we have seen at a number of these other protests. Actually, I appear to be incorrect. It looks like they're going to take the president through the back, so he will not necessarily be seeing those protesters. He is taking a different entrance into Miami Valley Hospital. We can tell you that while there, he is going to be thanking first responders, thanking hospital staff, as well as meeting with victims and families as well. The president's motorcade pulling up to Miami Valley Hospital in Dayton, Ohio right now. As we watch that unfold, let's bring in Tim Miller, Republican strategist, former deputy communications director for the Republican National Committee. Tim, thanks for your time, sir. Do appreciate you being here. First of all, Tim, are you surprised at all by the protests that we are seeing ahead of the president's visit in Dayton?
Absolutely not. Of course there should be protests. You know, look, I've been shocked by just the lack of humanity and the lack of self-reflection in the president's response to these shootings over the weekend. And I would just say to my former colleagues and
why are you shocked?
No, you're right, Craig. I'm not shocked that the president would do this. What I'm shocked by is that people I know, people I worked with, my former colleagues and friends who work and support this president, who is speaking up right now at this time to say this is when we need to turn the temperature down and help people grieve? Look, Craig, there was a mass slaughter of Hispanics 4 days ago now, based on a white supremacy political ideology. And the president, late last night, is tweeting about Hispanics. This morning on the White House lawn, he's talking about open borders. The only thing the president should be saying right now about Hispanic Americans is reminding anyone who might have any sympathy with that murderer that these are Americans. They deserve our love. They deserve our respect. They deserve our compassion, and he needs to bring them together. And I grew up 1 mile from Columbine. And I remember what happened after that shooting, and all our community wanted was for politicians to come in and help us grieve. And this president is completely unwilling to do that. And so, of course, there are protests. There should be protests, and I'm concerned about whether he's going to be able to, execute even the minimum possible compassion today.
You know, and here's the thing, Tim. I mean, this is a president, and you know what? I'm just going to play it for folks, and then I'll read the tweet. I want to juxtapose two of his more recent exchanges. This is the president of the United States on Monday.
Now is the time to set destructive partisanship aside. So destructive. And find the courage to answer hatred with unity, devotion, and love.
All right, so there's the president on teleprompter on Monday. This is the president in a tweet last night going after the aforementioned Beto O'Rourke on Twitter, saying he has a phony name, saying he trounced him. Going back to what Tim Ryan said to me a few moments ago, Tim, do you think that this is a president who is incapable of empathy or showing empathy? Or do you think that this is a president who is consistently unwilling to do that?
Both, probably. I mean, he's certainly unwilling. Look, you didn't even read it in the Beto tweet last night. I want to call this out. And then, he puts in, he goes by that name to pretend to be Hispanic or something to that effect.
Right.
Like a snarky joke about Hispanics after Hispanics were slaughtered. Look, I get that Beto has been attacking the president. Beto's name should not be in the president's mouth today. The only people's names that he should be talking about are Paul Anchondo is a 2-month baby whose parents were covering him at the Walmart and were both murdered by this white supremacist. He's going to grow up without any parents. He's 2 months old. That's the only type of name, the heroes in these situations, the victims that the president should be having, on his Twitter feed at midnight the night before. He's coming to meet with victims and first responders. Like the idea that he's going to make a joke about Beto's Hispanic background, after this murder targeting Hispanics. It's just he has no capability of doing the minimum that's needed to be done at a time like this.
Tim Miller, GOP strategist, former Deputy Communications Director for the RNC. Tim, thanks so much for your time as we continue to watch these protests play out in Dayton, Ohio, while the president is on the ground there visiting the hospital where a number of the victims and survivors were treated. The president also thanking first responders and doctors there who saved so many lives just a few days ago. When the president leaves the Buckeye State, he is going to head to El Paso, Texas, where a number of folks in that community aren't exactly rolling out the